Hey, so we're in part two of the pacifying pitta in summer video, and I'm just about to talk to you about how you can use herbs to support a cool mind and body in this time of year. So, a wonderful way of taking herbs in the summer is in the form of a cool down infusion. So, you make an infusion just in the way that you would make a cup of tea, but then you would leave that right until it cools down. So, you might even want to leave this overnight. So, if you prepare it the night before and you leave it to cool overnight, and then it's just ready for you to drink throughout the day, and you've got a strong infusion of cooling herbs that will take you through the next day. I'm going to take you through making that. So I've just got a cafetiere here, glass cafetiere, and I'm going to put in some of the cooling herbs that I have on me. So I've got this, which is some dried yellow dock, which I picked the other day. So I'm just, kind of breaking it up into pieces with my hands. It doesn't have to be so fine, but it just helps for, all the beautiful properties of these plants to be absorbed, to have them a little bit smaller and more surface area exposed. The next thing I'm adding right here is just some nettles. So I'm probably adding about 2 tablespoons of each thing. So let me just show you what I'm doing. Then I've just got a sachet of chamomile tea, which I'll just rip open. I'll go through these herbs a little better in a sec. Then I've got some rose petals, so I'll just take a kind of pinch or 2 of those. Again, I'm kind of just rubbing them between my fingers to break them up a little bit. Rose has wonderful astringent flavour, a sweet flavour, so those are the 2 of the 3 that I mentioned have cooling properties. And this is actually burdock root, which also has sweet taste. So just a little bit of that. So you're getting so many good things in this batch. And I think that's actually enough because I kind of like mine to be watery. I also brought out some coriander because that's good. So I'm just going to pour water right to the top of this. And that's it. You have this beautiful, I don't know if you can see, it just looks so pretty. This beautiful infusion of herbs. And then I'm just going to leave that to the side until it cools down. And then I'll drink it. So herbs, in Ayurveda and also I think in traditional Chinese medicine, the primary classification of herbs is whether they're heating or cooling. And it's interesting, many of herbs from the same family. So for example, the mint family, there'll be a kind of heating version of that herb and a cooling version of that herb. And so they're good for different versions of the same condition. Like, arthritis, which I mentioned earlier, has a kind of inflammatory arthritis. And then there's, I think, osteoarthritis, which is more of a cold, creaking bone condition. So really important in the classification of herbs, which ones are cooling, which ones are heating. I'm going to give you now a list of some cooling herbs. These are all herbs that you can use by themselves or in combination. Just play around with it. What do you have in your local area? What do you have in your store cupboard? And play around with combinations of flavors and things like that. But these are all going to be good for pacifying the pitta. So coriander, as I mentioned, you can use this dried or in the fresh version, which in America is called cilantro. Then burdock root, which I added to mine. Calendula or marigold is also anti-inflammatory or cooling, whichever way you want to say it. Brahmi, which is a really amazing Ayurvedic herb. It's called also gotukola, or the Latin name is Centella asiatica. And that's got a lovely cooling property, and it's also very good for keeping the mind bright and engaged. So if you're studying or doing lots of thinking, that's good for you. Fennel tops or dried fennel tea. Dill. Dandelion. So dandelion is a bitter, and one of the 3 tastes I mentioned at the beginning is the bitter taste, which is cooling to the body, so that's great. So you can use any part of the dandelion, root, leaf, flower, anything, and they are so abundant. I guess it depends where you live, but in England they're so abundant, in North America they're so abundant. Hibiscus, a little bit more of an exotic one, but this again has this very astringent and bitter taste, a little bit like the rose petals that I mentioned before. Marshmallow root is very sweet, and that's cooling as well. Meadowsweet, red clover, rose, and yarrow. So these are all some herbs that I just brainstormed, but it can really be, just I would encourage you to just test things out, and I can really recommend this book, which is called The Yoga of Herbs. And what it does in there is that for each herbs, it sort of lists the herbal energetics of that herb. So I don't know if you can tell, but it tells you the kind of whether it's cooling or pungent or whatever. And these symbols here, PKV, tells you that this is going to minimize pitta and kapha, and it's going to take vata up. So you can kind of tailor, once you know a little bit more about those things, you can tailor your own herbal formulations to exactly what you need. So that's a very easy way of taking herbs in the summer. Another thing that I would recommend is just taking bitters. If you don't want to do this whole shebang every day, make yourself some herbal bitters. I've done a video for that, so you can go check that out. And then all you need to do is just put a teaspoon or a dropperful into some water, and then you've got yourself a cooling drink. And then just before I go on to the next section, another great thing to do in the summer is just to do flavoured waters. So you can put things like cucumber, celery, fresh coriander in there, and some lime. If you're one of these people who loves lemon water, try substituting lemon for lime in the summer. Going back to the whole green vegetable thing, green limes are more cooling than lemons, which are yellow, so more hot, pungent flavour than lime. And you can just, have that brewing all day just in some cold water, and that will increase the cooling quality. Okay, so that's all I have to say about herbs. I'm going to talk a little bit about sunbathing now. So sunbathing in the right way can really be the difference between, harnessing the power of the sun in order to kind of glow inwardly, restore the digestive fire, being very kind of astute and bright and having amazing vision and, a beautiful glow on the skin and neutralize toxins, and the alternative, which is to really deplete the body and become incredibly dehydrated and burnt and experience things like fatigue. So the power of the sun is not to be dismissed, and the best way to do sun exposure is between dawn and 10 a.m. in a hot country, or dawn and 11 a.m. in a more temperate climate. So that would be somewhere like England. If you really want to kind of do this sort of sun meditation, taking in the power of the sun, the best time to do that is when the natural light of the sun is the most manageable for your skin and your body, which is between that dawn and 11 a.m. Time. I'm sure that everyone knows, it's not a great idea to just, stay in the sun all day, but just, moderating yourself and only ever sunbathing until you have a sort of light sweat on the body, and then just go back, and then drinking plenty of water as well to offset this kind of drying effect of the sun. Also, in terms of hair and head, one of the problems of pitta aggravation is when you get this hot head, and it can lead to hair loss and greying of the hair. So you can wear a kind of scarf or a bandana over your head, and that's a really good way of not getting too hot. Okay, so in the last few minutes I'm going to show you how to do Shitali breath. It's also called cooling breath. It's one of the pranayamas in Ayurveda or in yoga as well. So it's best to perform this on an empty stomach, so maybe first thing in the morning, and sitting with your legs crossed or sitting on top of a chair, and with your feet, if you're sitting on a chair, your feet should be planted on the ground, just straight down. And you can rest your hands in either position, just on the thighs or on the knees, wherever is comfortable. And your spine should be straight, and you should be feeling kind of comfortably open, upright. So basically what it is that you curl your tongue into a sort of C shape, so like this. And you're going to kind of close your eyes, curl the tongue, inhale through the tongue, so you're feeling the cooling air passing over the tongue, and then closing the mouth, and then kind of holding the breath for as long as feels natural and comfortable, and then exhaling through the nose. So just to demonstrate what that looks like for a few rounds. Yeah, so it's very easy. It's actually very relaxing, and it really brings down the pitta energy. You can repeat that as many as 15 times. The only thing I would say is just don't rush it. Don't get too perfectionistic about it, because then that will kind of aggravate your pitta even more. So just, if you're struggling to make the shape of the tongue, then you can just kind of breathe through your teeth like this. That's another breath called Sheetkari, but it has the same cooling effect. Basically, you want the air to be passing through the moist tissues of the mouth. It's how dogs cool down as well, so we can learn from the animal world. Yeah, don't try and get it right. Just notice the cool air passing on the tongue, and it can be a really beautiful meditative practice. And keeping close to the sensation of that cooling air passing over the tongue is really cooling for both the body but also the mind. And that's a really big part of balancing pitta, is just letting go of this kind of controlling mind. And so if you do find yourself in that place of feeling, like you want to control yourself or things outside of yourself, then trying as much as you can to just surrender and let go when and as things come is another way of really effectively balancing pitta. And then just before we finish, another amazing thing to do is bathing in cold, wild water, which is something that I love doing. Even walking next to bodies of open water is really restores that pitta back down to a normal level. So if you're feeling kind of aggravated and irritable, if you live by a river or a stream or a lake, you can just take a little walk around that, and you'll notice that you feel a lot calmer, more grounded, and going into that water is even better. So yeah, and I think also cold showers are really helpful, but that's not so much an Ayurvedic thing, but it's really helped me. So if you can spend, at the end of your shower, just about 20 seconds under the coldest setting, and just breathing deeply in and out, allowing that cold to really permeate all of your body. It's amazing. And if you're interested in more cold water therapy, then a good reference is Wim Hof, and he offers lots of pranayama and tips if you want to get into that. So I think that's all I have to say. This has gotten a really nice kind of amber colour, so I'm looking forward to drinking that later on. As usual, just please, feel free to share this with anybody who you think might find it useful. And then if you have any comments or questions, just pop them in the chat down below, and I will strive to answer them. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.